Welcome back. Today we have our candidates running for police chiefs. We have our incumbent and independent Harrison Riley, our Republican David Evers, and our Democrat Danny Berry. Okay. Mr. Riley, would you like to begin your opening remarks?
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Ms. Ingram, for hosting this event. I'd like to thank NBC6 at South Florida for filming this and broadcasting it to the public. I'd like to thank the audience for viewing and listening into our debate. And I'd like to thank my opponents for showing up for the debate.
Good morning, Ms. Ingram. First, I would like to thank you for hosting this debate. I would also like to thank the NBC6 network for airing this to our voting public, who I thank for tuning in. And I would also like to thank Mr. Riley for his 4 years of service. What I hope everyone sees today are the three main goals of my campaign: less gang violence, less illegal drug use by our teens, and the lowering of overall crime rate. I'm all about making the streets safer. I hope I can get started soon. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Mrs. Ingram for moderating this debate, Channel 6 for sponsoring the debate, and the viewers for tuning in today. I'm running for police chief because I grew up in Amimi and I noticed some issues that need to be upgraded. I will strive to improve the city each and every day, and I won't rest until we achieve perfection. By addressing the root of the problem and eliminating drugs and gangs in schools, we can make Amimi the greatest city in the world.
Okay, and with that, let's begin. Mr. Riley, as we discussed during the school superintendent debate, keeping teachers in public schools is an issue. With lack of teachers in the schools, there's an increase in drug trafficking among students. How do you propose to reduce the selling and usage of drugs in public schools?
Well, I'd like to strike at the heart of it and get in early on to the students that drugs are bad, of course, and by having prevention and awareness programs in middle school, and also for every student that is caught with drugs and alcohol and property should be taking rehabilitating drug counseling classes. Also, there should be two resource officers per school to ensure the safety of the students.
I would like to implement security cameras with a constant overseer rather than just having them in the school. You have to have someone watching them. You can't see it after it happens if you never look. Also, I would like to have drug dogs go through the school randomly during the week so the kids aren't expecting it, because if they expect it, they're just going to go around it. And I think we need 3 to 4 patrol officers in schools, because you can sneak around 2, but getting around 3 and 4 is a little harder. And we don't realize how serious this problem is, but if you stop it in schools and stop it young, they're not going to do it later.
The two things that I'd like to do is put counselors and patrol officers in school. I think that counselors can handle the mental side while patrol officers will handle the physical side. Counselors can talk to the students and make sure they don't fall to peer pressure, and can counsel with them if they need to talk to someone. And patrol officers can have random drug dogs walking around the school so they can catch any activity.
3 to 4 resource officers, I feel like that is too much for our limit.
Yeah, I think it should be 3 to 4, just because like everyone gets around 2. You see 2, you see there's one in the front and one in the back, you still in the middle. And with the awareness programs, everyone knows what drugs are.
Okay, so I agree with David. I think that people are aware of what drugs are and that they're bad. That's why I think counselors need to be able to talk to the students. And I agree that cameras would be a good idea, but I'm not sure where we would get the revenue for suspicious activities, so we know where to focus our efforts the most. And I also think we should improve the academy, because right now it's not very hard to become the cop, and I think if we improve the training process, less cops will be able to do more work.
With a decrease in the budget, I don't think we need to be worrying too much on the academy. Our officers are already trained and can enforce the law pretty well. I think we should have police patrolling zones created.
Mr. Berry, do you believe that there should be a team? Oh wait, was that another rebuttal?
No.
Oh wow. Okay. Rebuttal.
Okay, so in the past, Neighborhood Watch has been kind of weak. You see like 2 kids walking outside and they're like, oh, it's gang related, and then they charge them, and then you end up having an altercation when you can not have that by just having cops drive around rather than neighborhood people just thinking they see something. And Yeah, that's about it. I agree with the improvement of the police academy. Our officers are not what they need to be. They do need to be better if we have fewer.
I believe that the neighborhood watch would be effective in that it's inexpensive and easy to do, so it will help immediately. And I also think that the academy isn't necessarily trained that well currently because the crime rate speaks for that. And I think that if there's a lot of crime right now, that's not exactly acceptable.
The crime rate has definitely risen because of the budget cuts. And the budget cuts are creating a smaller police force. So what we really need to be focusing on is spreading that police force instead of going to the most costly thing, which is retraining our already fine policemen.
O'clock at night, they're most likely not up to any good. And I think that we can enforce this by having local business owners on the lookout for teens out past curfew, and also parents should be able to hold their kids responsible and know where they are at all times. And I think that kids will be discouraged to go out past curfew if we have severe consequences, such as fines, and that will prevent them from going out past curfew.
Yes, I do think the teens should have a curfew at 12 midnight due to the schools sometimes having events that go on till 11. It's a deterrent for late night driving, which most accidents happen past 9 o'clock in teens. Police officers can only give curfew charges, I think, if the person has been pulled over or has been seen doing suspicious activity, walking around at night.
Okay, I think there should be 2 curfews, one for the city where kids I think need to be back inside by like 11:30 because there's a lot more gang activity like deep in the heart of the city, which we know. And on the outskirts, I think it should be closer to 12 to 12:30 because kids stay out later out there. I mean, you're in the country, as they say, and you'll go fishing, you'll go to football games, and you'll have to get back later, and there's nothing we can do about having school activities, like he said, later than 11 o'clock.
And I think that it is important that we have a curfew because gang activity does increase at night.
Yeah, like Mr. Varick said earlier, is probably better than 12 in the city because most gangs come out at night when it's dark and they can hide in the alleys.
Most people in the city would be walking, would not be walking, and would be in a car. I don't think that alleyways would be much of a problem, but I think the curfew should be based off district, and more suburban areas could have a later curfew like 12, and the city should have one that's like 11:30 maybe.
What is your position on alcohol in public outside of facilities such as a restaurant?
I don't think alcohol should be prohibited in any public places without the regulatory signs that are strictly against it. However, there should be restrictions against public drinking outside of establishments past 11 o'clock to prevent alcohol-related crime.
I agree with Mr. Riley because alcohol outside of like a restaurant or a bar leads to loitering, and alcoholic loitering is a lot more dangerous than regular loitering. You make stupid decisions. So I think there should be like 11:30 probably. Restaurants should cut it.
I think that alcohol shouldn't be allowed in public because there's no real positive side to it and there's a lot of downsides. If people drink too much, things will go downhill very quickly. And I also think that it sets a bad example for kids who will be further exposed to alcohol.
Alcohol is a right that all U.S. citizens have. We are allowed to drink it, and I don't think we should have any limits based on what we can and can't do, and besides having a curfew on it, possibly in public places.
Going off of what both of them kind of just said, people are gonna drink somewhere because you want to get together with a group and you're gonna drink. And kids are more likely to see it if you're sitting on the side of the road drinking rather than being in a bar drinking. So I think if you wanted to put a limit on it, you would just have like designated bars and stuff rather than just completely cutting off public alcohol.
Yeah, like I said, people who drink alcohol are more than welcome to do it in their home. There's no really need for them to do it in public. And
Did you spend the extra revenue?
Well, as I said earlier, we need to be able to afford security cameras in schools. We need a better police academy, and we also need like for more intense training. We also need a bigger jail because the goal is to get more of these gangs off the streets, and we're gonna need a bigger jail.
My goal for if we raise more money would be to set up security cameras around Amimi in some of the worst areas so that we can monitor areas where we don't have police officers at all times, and I think that would increase the efficiency of the patrol officers.
I propose using the revenue from trespassing violations for increased police force to prevent further gang violence and spread our patrol units even further.
Okay, with the increased police force thing, it's quality over quantity, so I think if you were to upgrade the academy rather than get more officers that have no idea what they're doing, that would be more important.
I think that security cameras would be a better option than just having more officers because they'll be permanent in those areas and can watch those areas at all times, while officers only make routes and visit those areas occasionally.
Well, our 2-year training program for the police department is proved very well. We have one of the best police forces in all of Florida. I think the jail is already large enough. We have plenty of room for any criminals, and I think that a more concentrated police ratio in our cities would prove best.
Okay, and Mr. Barrett, how do you feel is the best way to educate teens on the effects of underage drinking?
Like I said earlier, I think counselors would be a good option. And also, I'd like to implement a program in schools where parents can sign their kids up to visit the Amimi jail. And I think that if they see the severity of what underage drinking can lead to, it'll scare them away from it.
Underage drinking has seen a rapid decline in schools that create prevention programs for alcohol starting in elementary school. So with elementary students getting their early facts about alcohol, we can have a refusal rate that will increase in teens in the future.
Similar to what Mr. Riley said, you gotta start it young in elementary schools. Let them be aware of it. Don't exactly tell them everything about it because they're not going to understand it. But let them be aware of it, and as they get older, keep reminding them that it's really bad, and if you start young, it's just gonna get worse as you get older. It's kind of like cigarettes. You say you can stop, but you can't.
I think that the underage drinking isn't necessarily from a lack of knowledge of it. It's just based off of peer pressure and what they're around. So I think having a counselor readily available to them would help them have someone to talk it through with and talk them out of making bad choices.
Usually by 8th grade, you see teens possibly getting asked asked if they want to drink alcohol or have chances of drinking alcohol. So by the time high school's around, some have already experienced these things, and counselors, I don't think, would have much influence on high school students that have already seen these things happening.
Yeah, with the amount of kids we have in our schools and with the amount of awareness kids already have about alcohol, a counselor would take too much time, like, to get to every single one of the kids. You go to a class, but you're not gonna be able to go to them like 7 times because they're gonna need influences constantly to not drink because it's so easy to access.
Okay, and that concludes our debate. Would you like to begin your closing remarks?
Thank you, Mrs. Ingram, again for moderating the debate. Thank you, Channel 6, for sponsoring the debate. And thank you for the viewers for tuning in. I think my policies will take Amimi to the next level, and my dedication and experience separate me from my opponents. Please vote for me in the upcoming election if you want a safer and better city.
Mr. Riley?
Thanks again for NBC6 South Florida for filming and broadcasting. Thank you, Ms. Ingram, for hosting the event. Thank you to our audience for viewing, and thank you again to my opponents for debating today with me. These last 4 years in office have really equipped me for protecting the citizens of Amimi. Vote Riley on your ballot to ensure the safety in the upcoming years of Amimi.
Thank you again, Ms. Ingram, for hosting this debate. Thank you, Channel 6, and mostly thank you to my voters for tuning into the show. Like I said over and over again, every single time I see your faces, I want you to know that your safety is my #1 priority, and I'll do anything to keep you breathing.